In times like these, we all need a word of encouragement. From pastor and best-selling author Max Lucado comes the Max Lucado Encouraging Word podcast. With over 40 years of ministry and more than 145 million books sold in 50 languages, Max shares the greatest story ever told, the living Savior who brings hope for a lifetime. Through rich biblical insight, heartfelt storytelling, you'll be reminded that God is always near, always for you, and always in you. Listen to the Max Lucado Encouraging Word podcast, where hope meets your day. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
One of these men is a highly respected New York attorney, Lucas A. Ferrara. The other is a self-proclaimed man of the people, known as Mert Roberts. Their aim is to discuss the hottest issues impacting our city, state, and nation. Fasten your seatbelts. Shake it off with Mert and Lucas. Live starts now on AM 970. The Answer.
That's an interesting beat. What's the name of that one, Alex Garrett?
Right, this is Farm Funk by High Myths Music.
Farm funk. Well, there was something funky going down at the farm for sure. Let's talk a few minutes about César Chávez. Now, he rose from a childhood spent in the migrant fields, Mert, to become the most recognizable face of the American farm worker movement. He was a labor leader whose hunger strikes, marches, and boycotts reshaped the national conversation about dignity and economic justice. For decades, Mert, he occupied a near mythic status in the public memory, celebrated as a moral force whose activism gave voice to workers long pushed to the margins. Well, my friends, César Chávez, or César Chávez, however you want to pronounce it, has been canceled. Not for the immigration fights, not for the union wars, not for the political contradictions that scholars have been talking about for decades. No, this time the ground shook for a different reason. Women, some now elderly, some still carrying the voices of the girls they once were, have come forward with stories of rape, coercion, and sexual abuse. Yes, I know, studio audience, stay calm. Their stories reach back to the 60s and 70s, and they identify Chávez not as a flawed strategist or a complicated leader, but as a predator. And suddenly, Mert, the country is staring at a man it thought it knew and seeing a stranger. This isn't just a cancellation, Mert. This is a shameful reckoning. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, you know what? I absolutely have a lot of thoughts on this, because if you think about it, César Chávez, and I'm not the most historically gifted person when it comes to history and everything, but to be clear, Chávez was what? What was his actual, what was he a leader of? What was he?
The Farm Workers Union, he was a hero of the labor movement.
Okay, because I'm thinking of like César Chávez. For some reason, I'm thinking about Venezuela or something like that. I don't know why.
No. This was out in California, and it was he helped migrants and enforced, unionize.
Now, the thing that we have to understand is men are flawed. We can be monsters, and this is where it gets tricky, because there's a lot of people who hold him up in high regard,
like a saint.
Yeah. Yep, and a lot of people out there are going to sit back and try to put the blame onto the women, say, well, it was a coordinated attack on him because of what he was doing. And there might be proof of that out there. I'm not sure, but there might be proof of that out there. So with these type of situations, I'm always a little bit careful, because historical figures oftentimes their names are sullied with these type of allegations. And the allegations could be true. I'm not going to try to say they're not. I'm not going to go one way or the other. I'm just going to say it's very complicated, because at certain times there have been people out there who try to bring up Martin Luther King and what was recorded on him.
Right.
his affairs. And then it's up to the person to say, okay, there was no there was no proof. So does the good outweigh the allegations? And this is the rough part about being a human being, because we oftentimes have to take that stance with people we're close to. You might have a cousin who robs banks. Are you going to not invite him to Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas? Or are you going to say, you've been robbing banks, you got to stay away, we don't want anything to do with you? A lot of people
That's a tough one. That's a tough one, Mert. What would you do if you had a relative that did that?
I'd say,
I'm just curious, because
say,
I'm confused. I don't know what I would do exactly.
Right. I'd probably say, hey, you got some of that money for me? No, but I don't know what I would do.
Oh, my goodness. Did you hear that, Alex? Oh, boy.
I did.
That's not as serious as sexually harassing women. But it's a tough spot to put yourself in, because...
But you know what, Mert? We're all flawed. And this is the overarching point. We're all flawed. We all have secrets.
Right.
All of us have dark sides, right?
Absolutely.
And you bring a truly valid point. Does that outweigh all the good? And that's the question for the night. I mean, he was the saint of the picket line, the prophet of the poor, the face of dignity for people who had none. But now, Mert, the allegations... 2 women say that Chavez raped them, ready for this because this shocked me, when they were 12 and 13. And that abuse allegedly continued for years inside the movement that he led. So people had to have known about it or suspected it. Something disgraceful, behind the scenes was going on.
Well, I'll say this. If you think about anything that's great, if it gets big enough, there will be some seediness that takes place. Think about America's history. I love America, but I'm not blind. I'm not ignorant to the history. Now, a lot of people would say America did a terrible thing. But for the way that America is positioned today, where everybody can come here and make a positive living for themselves, would you be willing to trade that for what we have today? Would you say it was worth it, everything that America done in its history, for how things are today, where America is looked at as the referee, the moral standard? Might not be today, but that's up for the debate. But traditionally, America has held that position in the world as the moral standard, a democratic nation, but a nation that has a history that's dealt with slavery and stealing land from people. But today it's a great place. So, Lucas, this is a good topic to bring up, because this is something that people have to deal with all the time. Are you willing to overlook the past if the present is great and fruitful and beneficial to so many people? And this Chavez guy, he was a big part of that.
Yeah, he did some great things for the United Farm Workers. There's no question about it. But now, because look, in addition to those young girls alleging rape, his co-founder of the movement, the United Farm Workers, claims that Chavez raped her in the 60s and impregnated her twice. Supposedly she had 2 babies out of wedlock. And other women, Mert, alleged coercion, harassment, and a culture of silence that was enforced by people in the upper echelons there. So there was something really seedy going on behind the scenes, without question. But do we forgive or forget the seediness? Probably not. But can't we acknowledge that we are all fallible, that we're all vulnerable, that we all have dark sides, and just say he was flawed? Chavez was a man who was flawed, but he did great things for farm workers, and he did great things for the labor movement. But no, it's either everything or nothing, and they're canceling him left and right. I think they're going to take his name off of holidays. I have the list here somewhere. They're removing his name from buildings. Cities are canceling Chavez Day events. The union that he founded, United Farm Workers, is distancing itself from its own founders. So this is what's happening now. Everybody's like stepping back
and it
trying
makes
to
sense.
disassociate with the guy that did some great things.
It makes sense why this is happening, because in the back of my mind, there's always somebody looking for an opportunity to make their name more prominent, to take an organization in a direction, and to destroy the legacy of someone in order to boost their legacy. There will be a lot of people out there who will be, they might be disgusted that I'm actually bringing that up, but it is possible that somebody was sitting on this information and waiting for the perfect opportunity to throw it out there so that they could boost their name or their reputation, or to take credit away from Chavez and to put the credit onto themselves. His name might be so big that his family and his offspring may be holding power in these organizations. In order to remove them from having power, you have to destroy the legacy of Chavez. So now the Chavez family and his legacy are demolished, and now whoever's rising up can step in place and have their voice and their power increased and thrown to the forefront.
This is very Machiavellian of you. So you're saying this could have been a way to neutralize the Chavez family or any successors associated with the Chavez family. Interesting. I never thought about it that way. But let's keep it more neutral. I mean, Alex, what do you think? Should Chavez be canceled for what he did, for the mistakes he made as a human being? And we all make mistakes.
Well,
I'm not saying what he did is acceptable by any stretch of the imagination. It's horrific. Rape is horrific, and particularly minors. That's unforgivable. But what about his accomplishments, Alex? Is there a balance, or is it yay or nay?
I always find the fine line, but with this is like horrific information here. And I'm glad Mert brought up America's founding real quick, because they've been trying to cancel Jefferson and Washington and all these others founded the country. That's right. Yet here we are, almost year 250, 3 months from now. So something's going strong. Maybe in this case there'll be still others that still revere him, honor him. But look, with this information, I don't condone tearing down statues and stuff like that, because I think that's part of history. But there should be a blemish on his record. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, look at Epstein. Wasn't this the basis of Epstein's power, is that he was appealing to the dark side of many powerful men in particular? Mert?
Absolutely. And this is why these conversations are always a little bit murky for me, because I understand that people lie. And I understand with certain crimes, you cannot go back in history and prove if they're true or not. You have to take that person's word for it. And when you leave it up to that, you get Epstein's, you get Harvey Weinstein's, you get all these individuals who have been accused of atrocities, and the only way to prove them is to take the word of someone else. Because in a lot of these situations, it is not a violent crime. A lot of the times, it is they drew me in and they took advantage of a situation. There was no real fight. There was no gun. There was no kidnapping that took place. It was more of a gray area type of thing. But if we're talking about underage girls, then we have a serious crime there. But if we're talking about adult women who are saying these things, then it becomes a little bit tricky, because...
No, we're talking about both. In this case, it's a collection of both, Mert. Right. Underage kids and an adult, his co-founder. So how about that?
Yes, and it still comes down to the fact that you have to live in a world where a crime needs to be reported and evidence needs to be collected. Because I could go around saying stuff about people all the time, and if we're just going to take people's word for it, then we're going to live in a dangerous society, and in a society where when somebody does say something and something actually happened to them, we might start not taking that seriously, because it might get a little bit, okay, all right, something that happened to everybody. Did you call the police? No. Why not? Well, I felt like I couldn't do anything. Okay, back in the 60s, I understand. But it's still happening today where people were feeling like I couldn't do anything, when we know there's a audience out there who wants to hear this stuff. It don't make sense anymore. So
I think what you're trying to say and what Luke's trying to say is there's this rush to cancel people instead of thoroughly vetting every claim out there. I think that's the point here.
Yeah, I do think we're too quick to cancel, and I think that because we're all flawed, right? I think what we can do is acknowledge his greatness, the good things that he did. I mean, he did extraordinary things, Mert and Alex. He changed the lives of millions of people. He reshaped the labor landscape of this country, okay? But while he may have committed very bad acts, unimaginable harm on very vulnerable people, in my opinion, it can be true. You can be flawed, but you can be a hero too. And how do we balance that? That's the question for our listeners, and that's the question for our audience.
Well, I would say we bring on someone that's a proponent of Cesar Chavez to maybe not refute the claims, but answer that question, something like that.
But see, that puts them in a bad light, because of course, see, what we're going to do, of course you're going to support them, and then you bring on somebody who's accusing them, of course you're going to say they did this or that. Right. So it's very complicated. It's like trying to sue somebody for stealing an idea that was never recorded or written down. How do you prove whose idea it was? It's very difficult.
Right.
With these things, it's very difficult to prove if there's no evidence that any of this took place. And these are what make these situations that I don't feel comfortable touching.
And the other question is, why didn't they bring it up in the 60s and 70s? That's where this all comes to as well. As if it happened, wouldn't have been widely reported then.
Well, you know what, guys? I mean, we're running out of time, but I think the enablers should also be held culpable in some respects. The enablers killed Elvis. The enablers killed Michael Jackson. The enablers killed Prince. The people around him, all those men, knew exactly what was going down. The addictions, whatever the case
Michael
may
Jackson, too, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Michael Jackson. So those people remained silent, Mert. They were complicit. They allowed the bad things to happen, and the same, I'm sure, happened here. What about them? Shouldn't they be held accountable? Because their silence empowered Chavez to do not so good things.
Well, I don't agree with that, because there are people out there who are very sure about what they want. And it is very possible to have people who do things for you and they not all be on the same accord, the same dime. I got one person who handles this, one person who handles that, and they don't realize what the totality of what's going on is taking place. So it is very possible that that can occur too. I had one person pick up the drugs. I had one person pick up the women. I had one person pick up the alcohol.
And they're all guilty, in my opinion, Mert.
Well, if none of it's illegal, then there is no real guilt. It's a grown man directing grown adults to do stuff for them. I'm not going to say a grown man can't tell when something's going wrong with his life. These people aren't being enabled. They are allowing people to do stuff for them. That's not in their best interest. But if you're willing to pay for it, who am I to tell you, hey, stop? You'll just go get somebody else to do it for you.
Well, you know what? But then I'm not the one that's going to be responsible or allowing you to kill yourself or to hurt others. That's the decision, Mert, right? So, look, my point is this. A society that confronts the darkness in its heroes is not weak. It is honest. It is brave. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real legacy we should be fighting for, acknowledging the humanity. Anyway, Mel, my friends, we have a legacy for you. You're listening to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas Live. We are truly honored to have you along with us for the ride. Would you believe this is episode number 91? Come on. Would you believe it? Let's hear an amen. Amen. The studio audience is with us tonight. This is Lucas Ferrara, and we're ever mindful that without you, we're nothing. And we've got some great guests in store for you today. But before I release them, you heard from my great co-host. He's affectionately known as the Mertinator, the one, the only, Mert Roberts. You heard from our producer-engineer, Alex Garrett. He's got a podcast, One Leg Up with Alex Garrett. Check it out. Working Master Control, Hermine Santos. Thank you, Hermine. And everybody behind the scenes, we appreciate it. Some guests for you after the break. Dr. Renata Moon will be talking about, she's a board-certified pediatrician, medical transparency. Hour 2, Reverend Avery. Stay tuned.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
What does the perfect celebration look like? Great weather, great company, and unforgettable views. Just imagine your birthday, anniversary, or company party set against the iconic New York City skyline. Sound too good to be true? Well, you know what? It's not. When the weather warms up, there's no better place to celebrate than on board the Atlantis Yacht from New York Cruises. From intimate gatherings to full-scale corporate events, Atlantis Yacht is a premier floating venue offering a truly unique experience. Their dedicated team of hospitality professionals will help you plan every detail so you can relax and enjoy the moment. Your guests will be wined and dined across the main deck, the sky deck, the lounge deck, all featuring breathtaking 360-degree views of the Manhattan skyline. Birthdays, anniversaries, engagements, company parties, reunions, retirement celebrations. If there's a reason to celebrate, Atlantis Yacht is the place to do it. Call 212-633-1231 to book your unforgettable event today or check them out at newyorkcruises.com.
We love bringing you products that improve your life. Well, this product can save your life or the life of those we cherish the most, our youngest children. There are approximately 5,000 choking deaths in the U.S. each year. One child dies every 5 days from choking. Children under the age of 5 are most at risk. There is a solution. It's called LifeVac. Arthur Lee is the founder, CEO, and inventor of LifeVac. LifeVac is a simple rescue device that can change your child's life in a choking emergency. It's non-invasive and easy to use, and one kit fits the whole family. If you have a young child in your family, I strongly recommend you visit the LifeVac website. That's LifeEvac.net. Listen to Arthur's compelling story and view the videos demonstrating its ease of use. LifeVac works in 3 simple steps: place, push, and pull. The LifeVac device dislodges the obstruction and suctions out the food or object. It's that simple. LifeVac.net, made in the USA and FDA registered.
We can tell you about the incredible success we bring to local businesses, but it's better when it comes directly from our satisfied clients. Here's just one example.
After searching for a new vendor to handle my search marketing campaign, I contacted Salem Surround after seeing the great work they did for another restoration company in the different market. Their team of experts recommended a mix of multiple tactics designed to get my business the most quality leads at the lowest cost, making my marketing budget stretch further. In our first year partnering with Salem Surround, we recorded our best year to date, and I've told many people how blessed I was to find them. The representative answered the phone every time I called and quickly addressed any questions or concerns I had.
Let Salem Surround give you an absolutely free audit of your current marketing and show you what your competition is doing. Then, we come up with a personalized plan that's perfect for your needs. Google Salem Surround New York and let our marketing experts help you achieve real success. Remember to Google Salem Surround New York today.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
Hey, what's the name of that tune, Alex?
This is called Moon Girl by Delta X Music.
Dr. Renata Moon is a board-certified pediatrician with expertise in general pediatrics and pediatric hospital medicine, bringing more than 25 years of clinical experience across inpatient, outpatient, and academic settings. She served as a long-time clinical associate professor of medicine, training medical students and residents while shaping curriculum in pediatric care, clinical reasoning, and professional ethics. Her work extends beyond the bedside into the national conversation on medical transparency, informed consent, and the pressure facing pediatric clinicians. She's a fellow of the American College of Pediatricians and serves on the organization's board of directors, contributing to policy discussions on child health, evidence-based practice, and physician autonomy. She's also a senior fellow in pediatrics at the Independent Medical Alliance, where she collaborates with clinicians advocating for open scientific inquiry and ethical standards in pediatric medicine. We are honored to welcome her to the program. Dr. Moon, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Doc, let's start off, with something that concerns many, many parents, and I know you've testified at Capitol Hill about vaccines and the COVID vaccine in particular. And many parents question the efficacy, the safety of the COVID vaccinations. We were all sold a bill of goods. And I wanted to get your insights or your comments on what went wrong and why were parents, or do many parents feel they were misled?
Yeah, from my perspective, I was practicing in Washington State, which was one of our hardest hit states in terms of the censorship and, the loss of physician voices. But we completely lost informed consent, free and open discussions and debate. We were heavily censored during the COVID era, and I think it really brought to light the problems that we have in healthcare. We're really in trouble in healthcare right now if we can't openly discuss the risks and benefits of products.
But why do you think, Doc, because I know my co-host Mert is dying to ask you a question, but why do you think, I think the Biden administration, the Trump initially, then Biden, they were in a rush to get these vaccines out? I think there was a panic. Do you not think they meant well, or was this just plainly irresponsible?
It's hard for me to understand what the intent was, but I don't know. I wasn't at those federal levels to understand what was happening with that. But I can tell you what I saw from my colleagues, and that is a sheer lack of curiosity, lack of commitment to individual patient care. And I really firmly believe that this situation would have been completely different if we had had colleagues, medical professionals, who stood up to this and said, wait a minute, we need to figure this out. And instead, people were really forced into going along with a narrative that just didn't make any sense and ended up being dangerous for many of our citizens.
So before I ask
get ready for the Murdinator, Doc. This is the Murdinator.
Let me ask you, what is your position on, were we right in forcing people to take the vaccine, or was that the wrong approach?
I think we're never right in forcing people to take something that can harm them.
Amen.
And as we saw very early on with the COVID shots, not only could it harm people, and it did, we have many, many injured people. We all know somebody who has been injured from the COVID shots. And the younger the person is, the more obvious it is that they've been injured. I keep saying that over and over again. But not only could it injure people, but it actually killed some people. And I personally know a number of bereaved families who absolutely and clearly lost their loved ones from these shots. These were young people who died. So, no, we are never in a position where it's okay to force something on a healthy person, for the benefit of the common good, which is what it was pushed at.
Now,
that's an ethical violation.
Now, let me ask you this.
I agree with Doc. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So,
go ahead, Mert. Yeah.
And you're the medical professional here, so I'm just asking questions, just out of curiosity. When we weigh how many people died from the actual virus to the people dying from the vaccine, where do you draw the line and say, maybe we have to get this vaccine out there so that more people lives can be protected? And there might be some risks where some people might have adverse reactions and actually die from it. But for the benefit of the majority, we're going to have to take that risk. Is it acceptable to have calculated risk in medicine, or does it have to be certain all the time, especially when time is of the essence, like this situation where COVID hit so fast and so heavy?
Yeah, so the question you ask is a really important one, and I'm going to keep my answer relatively simple, and that is that America is built on the foundation of freedom, individual freedom, and there is nothing about what happened during the COVID era that says that someone who was exposed to the risk of the shot and maybe died or was harmed, that their taking the shot helped anyone else. Okay, we know that taking the shots didn't stop transmission or infection, right? So they're taking these shots. It didn't help their neighbor. It didn't help their Aunt Gertrude, who's 98 years old. It didn't help anyone else. This was strictly an individual decision for people to make with their doctors. And their rights were taken away when they were told, you're going to be fired. You're going to not be able to enter a restaurant. You can't fly a plane. Their freedoms were taken away, and that's never right. That's a violation of the ethical principle of patient autonomy, the ability to make your own healthcare decisions.
So you're saying
you could have a really, yeah.
So you're saying that you deciding not to get vaccinated, that carries over into what an employer decides to do in terms of, if you don't get this vaccine, you're fired. So you're saying the two are intertwined? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they were. We saw that play out during COVID, right? We had employers telling people, you can't maintain your job. We're not going to keep you here if you don't take this shot. But again, whether you had the shot or not didn't matter in terms of your ability to transmit this or to give this infection to other people, right? Like, we all know people who had the shots and who've had COVID multiple times, right? So some vaccines stop it. Like, for example, let's use a chickenpox vaccine as an example. When the chickenpox vaccine rolled out, we stopped seeing chickenpox because it just really wasn't around anymore, hardly at all, because it actually did stop the transmission and the infection with chickenpox. The COVID shot didn't do that. If you had the shot, you still caught COVID. If you didn't have the shot, of course, you still could catch COVID. So this was an individual decision that people needed to make with their own doctors, and not by force. When you force someone to do something against their will, and then something terrible happens to them, a reaction to the vaccine, or God forbid they die from the vaccine, who's going to pick up those pieces? Who's going to, ultimately that's on the patient to have made that decision. So it's not the right of society to tell a healthy person they have to take something that could kill them, right?
We're about to go to a break, but after we get to break, I got a question, because I want to know what your thoughts is on how corporations made the decision to link up with the government and say, you know what, I think we should force people, because this is getting away from medicine and getting into, well, if I'm a corporation, which are considered private entities in a lot of cases, if I say you need to wear jeans to work or you're fired, or you need to take this vaccine or you're fired, what's the difference? It's my decision, and I'm telling you to do something. You don't have to. You can leave. So is that really related to the medical field, or are these corporations making a choice that benefits them? They say, we want our people to be vaccinated. I don't care if you want to be vaccinated or not. You can go work somewhere else if you want to take the vaccine. I want to know, do you have an issue with that?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. We could have a long conversation about it. But again, to keep it simple, you wearing a uniform as an employee or you wearing a pair of slacks as an employee is not going to kill you. But when you're asking people to take a medical product that may not benefit them at all and may only be risky for them, who put these corporations in charge of your
with that note, Doc, we have to take a
healthcare?
quick break. We have to go to a commercial break. Mert, Alex, and I hope you'll stay right where you are. Hang tight. Dr. Moon is returning after the break with insights so sharp they should probably come with a warning label. Don't miss it. We'll be back with Dr. Moon after these messages.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Medical news from Dr. Lederman about possible relief of heel pain caused by plantar fasciitis and relief of knee, hip, and hand arthritic pain caused by bursitis, synovitis, and tendinitis. Plantar fasciitis affects 2 million Americans, causing heel pain. Even Dr. Lederman. Relief is possible with non-invasive, non-surgical therapy with Dr. Lederman. 32 million Americans have arthritic pain in knees, hips, and hands. Non-invasive, non-medicinal options exist here today for many struggling with heel pain caused by plantar fasciitis and knee, hip, and hand arthritic pain. Learn by meeting Dr. Lederman, 1384 Broadway at 38th. Most insurances, Medicare, Medicaid accepted. Dr. Lederman works for your health. Innovative care, personalized relief with Dr. Lederman. Call 212 Choices, 212 Choices. New options for pain relief with Dr. Lederman. 212 Choices. Who would have thought?
Hey, it's Joe Piscopo. You heard me talk about First Christian Mortgage, and I want to tell you why I respect what they're doing. They're a faith-based direct lender, and that means they really focus on serving people the right way with honesty, clarity, and integrity. Buying a home or refinancing can feel overwhelming. There are rates, loan programs, paperwork. It's a lot. What I appreciate about the team at First Christian Mortgage is that they take the time to walk you through all your options, explain things clearly, and help you make the decision that's right for your family. And here's something smart to do before you move forward with any lender. Get a free second opinion from them. It costs nothing, and it could save you money or help you find a better loan option. So do what I recommend. Reach out and talk with the team. Ask for Ryan and the First Christian Mortgage team. Call 888-834-8880 or visit firstchristianmortgage.com.
Paid endorsement by Joe Piscopo for First Christian Mortgage, NMLS number 7230, 3601 Hempstead Turnpike, Suite 305, Levittown, New York 11756. Licensed by New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance. This is an advertisement for a first mortgage loan, not a commitment to lend. Program subject to change. Equal housing lender.
Born on America's darkest day of 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been helping America's heroes ever since. When a first responder or military service member doesn't come home and young children are left behind, Tunnel to Towers pays the mortgage on the family home. For catastrophically injured veterans and first responders, Tunnel to Towers builds mortgage-free smart homes. Through the Foundation's Homeless Veteran Program, Tunnel to Towers is providing housing and services to homeless veterans. The Foundation is helping America to never forget 9/11 and its heroes through hundreds of events across the nation, while its 9/11 Institute helps teachers educate children about our nation's darkest day. People who put their lives on the line for our country and our communities need your help. Join Tunnel to Towers on its mission to do good and never forget 9/11 or the sacrifices of America's heroes. Donate $11 a month and consider amplifying your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Fight for what's right.
Welcome back to Shake It Off with Mert and Lucas, live on AM 970, The Answer.
We have been speaking with Dr. Renata Moon, a board-certified pediatrician with more than 25 years of clinical experience in both general pediatrics and pediatric hospital medicine, as well as a longtime clinical associate professor involved in training future physicians. She's also a fellow at the American College of Pediatricians and a senior fellow at the Independent Medical Alliance, known for her advocacy on informed consent, medical transparency, and open scientific discourse in pediatric care. Now, Doc, before the break, we were talking about COVID, the COVID vaccine. Basically, aren't we talking about the lack of informed consent, which is one of your areas? Isn't that the nutshell here?
Yeah, certainly. You know, I as many of you know, I lost my position as a professor. My medical school was upset with me because I spoke at a U.S. Senate hearing in 2022 when I showed the package insert from a box of mRNA product, and that big package insert that I had pulled out of the box of mRNA vaccine, it simply said intentionally blank on it. Intentionally blank. It didn't even say what was in the vial.
Oh, my God.
How in the world can anyone have an informed consent discussion with anybody when you don't even know what's in the vial that you're injecting into a patient? This gets down to the very basics of what it means to have an informed consent discussion. And so, yeah, clearly that didn't happen with this product. We were told to say safe and effective for a product that clearly was not safe for many of our citizens.
But to Mert's point before the break, and corporations and the pharmaceutical companies in particular, they had their hand in the till, did they not, Doc? So was this about greed, in your opinion? Because to me, it strikes me as pure avarice.
Well, and let me add to this. You know, we obviously have a very painful history here in America with the history of slavery, right? I mean, wasn't slavery a horrible thing? Of course it was. It was horrible that a plantation owner had slaves that they owned, and they would literally tell those slaves, you know, not just what to do, but they would do things to them. They would pull their teeth. They would give them injections. They would, you know, provide all of the, if you want to put it in quotes, the care for these poor slaves that lived on their plantations. How is this any different than modern-day slavery? If a corporation can tell you what you need to inject into your body, when a corporation gets to act as if they make all of your healthcare choices, no. We just, over that last break that you had, we listened to a wonderful ad talking about our nation's veterans. We are here in America because we value our freedom.
Amen.
We're free people. Thank God that slavery is gone now, except for it's been replaced with this modern-day equivalent of corporation slavery. How dare they think they can dictate and make healthcare choices for us? No, they can't. That's why these veterans fought for our freedom, and we have to join them in this and fight just as ferociously for our own individual ability to be free people, all of us. That's where we are in America today.
Yeah. But Doc, I know Mert wants to follow up with you, but wasn't the government also complicit? I mean, we were told that in New York City, for example, that you lost your job if you didn't take the virus. You couldn't go into restaurants, as you noted, if you couldn't show proof, and you also noted you couldn't get on an airplane. So wasn't the government complicit by allowing that to happen?
Sure seems that way to me. Doesn't it seem that way to you? Of course it does. The regulatory agencies that dictate what physicians can and can't do, all of a sudden, you know, and it makes sense up to a point, right, to have a regulatory government, to a government that gives us certain standards, right? Like I can't go and do something really crazy as a doctor. You know, I'm a pediatrician. I can't go, for example, and perform a heart surgery. That would be criminal and terrible and outside of my lane. So the government should control that. But it became so tyrannical during COVID that they began to control our ability to even have a conversation about all of this, to even speak.
That's right.
And we need to say no to that. I mean, this absolutely came from our government. Yes, it does.
Yes.
And Lucas, let me get in here real quick. Doc, you just said something very interesting right there.
Yeah.
How you can't go around performing heart surgery because you might mess up because that's not your expertise. At what point do you not trust the government? Because I'm trying to figure out what incentive would the government have to mandate that the people take these vaccines, and if you don't take them, you can't participate
in society. Yeah,
in society with the blessing and with the cooperation of society. You know, these corporations. What incentive would they have to turn people away, potentially turning business away? Why would the government want to do that, in your opinion? Why would they want to bring back slavery, in your opinion? That's what I'm asking.
This is strictly my opinion because I'm not at the federal level, so I don't know for sure, right? We need to be asking that question. But I'm first generation. I was born here in America as grew up as a proud American here, to parents who fled from political persecution under communism in Europe. They fled from behind the Iron Curtain. And I've seen communism with my own eyes. Unfortunately, communism is a system where the government no longer acts in the best interests of the people and becomes tyrannical. It starts to rule everything that a person can and can't do. So my short answer to you is this. I have seen communism. I saw what our government did here over the last, 6 years of the COVID era. This is absolutely the early stage of communism that we are in. And the reason it happened, in my opinion, is so that we would obey and so that we would be controlled. So that we would obey and that we would be controlled, just like my relatives suffered under behind the Iron Curtain of communism.
Right. So
powerful, very powerful, Doc.
So
I agree.
Are there other ways that you've seen this communist
manifesto implemented, Doc, other than COVID, when it comes to healthcare?
Other than medicine, like where the other areas do you see this at?
I see it everywhere. I see it in the fact that they're trying to push for digital currency, which is another way of controlling us, right? If now there's a record that you and Alice had coffee together at 10 a.m. on Monday at the coffee house, all of these things are being tracked. I see it when I fly on our airplanes. Yes, none of us want to get on an airplane where there's a bomb. None of us want that. But why do they have to do facial recognition? Why do they have to check your papers and have you have a real ID to show your papers? That's exactly what happened under communism. My relatives were tracked when they went from one village to another to visit a relative. They had to check in with the local police department. Absolutely, this is communist. Check me for bombs. Check all of us for bombs before we board a flight. But you don't have to see our ID. You don't have to scan our faces. Unless there's a problem, unless someone else is sitting in your seat on that plane when you get there, in which case you should both pull your ID out and figure out who bought the ticket. But there's no reason to do this other than control and making sure that we all obey that as it clamps down around us. I see it when we check into motels and hotels. They no longer allow you to pay cash for a deposit. They want your ID again. They want your papers. They want to know who you are. They want you to put down a deposit with a credit card. All of this is tracking us in a way that absolutely is the same as what happened to my relatives under communism. It's all around us. It is terrifying right now to watch it coming into place, because ultimately what happens in situations like this is that you are more and more controlled. You have less and less ability to move freely around the country, around your own area, and we're headed in the wrong direction with this ultimate control.
And I think AI is going to make it worse, Doc, because even our thoughts, our searches, that's all recorded, that's all kept. This is only getting worse, and I agree with you 1,000%. What do you? I think the doctor's right on the money, Mert. What do you think?
I would be interested. Have you been welcomed back into the medical profession? Are you still? Is there a scarlet letter attached to you, or have they welcomed you back?
For the state that I left, Washington State, I had practiced there for over 20 years. I had colleagues that I knew for many, many, many years, and they would. They were nice. They would say things like, "Oh, hey, will you come check out the kid in room 32 and let me know what you think?" And I brought my own kids in. They're back in the treatment room. Can you look at their ears? They asked for my advice for years. And when I began to question the whole COVID narrative, I became radioactive. I became completely ostracized and radioactive. So,
and they
no,
haven't
the
welcomed
medical
you back.
community, absolutely not. No, I am completely ostracized by the medical community in Washington right now. And you know what? I'm actually perfectly fine with that as long as we're free people.
Amen.
What I see our freedom dissolving before our eyes. I see that we're all becoming modern-day controlled slaves, and it frightens me. So I will continue to speak out, just like I'm asking every one of you to be as loud as you can in whatever capacity you have. We cannot let this happen to our entire nation because it will happen to all of us. So, but yes, I'm still ostracized. The entire medical system is underwater with this right now. Increasing protocols in our hospitals, increasing control over what physicians can and can't order, what they can and can't say, to patients even. We're watching the system get worse.
So, Doc, let me ask you one final question. Would you be in favor of removing patients being able to sue doctors who said, I decided that this would be best for you as your doctor. You can't sue me if there's something goes wrong, even though there might be recommendations out there from the government that says we should operate this way. If something goes wrong and your doctor determined to go against the grain, should you be free from being able to be sued? Would you be willing to get rid of that?
Yeah, you can sue your doctor right now if something goes wrong. You can, and as a medical malpractice lawsuit, what you can't do right now is to sue the vaccine makers, the manufacturers of these vaccines. 1986 created a law in Congress that says you cannot sue the vaccine makers. So yes, I'm all in favor of getting rid of that 1986
Well, why would you sue the vaccine makers?
Because it gave them a shield to do the stupid things like not include information, in a packet, right?
Well, my real question is, you don't have to take the vaccine, so why would you sue the vaccine makers? What did they have?
They have responsibility, consumer too, and unfortunately, Doc, we have run out of time. Is there any place our listeners can go to find out more about you, or where can they go? Because we only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, I would direct them. I don't do much social media. It's just not. I think it's actually harmed us more than helped us. It's not a good thing, social media.
Yeah, I was looking for you. I couldn't find you. Yeah, but how can
I'm really not on there. But I do have a book that will be coming out in the next few months to get the word out to people about what's happening. And there is a website you can go to look at details of my case against the medical school, because I am suing the medical school on behalf of all of us. We have to have our freedom to speak.
And what website is that, Doc? Because we're running out of time.
That website is silentmajorityfoundation.org. silentmajorityfoundation.org. It's my legal team, and they have created the website. Look for my name, and you'll find it.
And what's the name of your book that's coming out?
I can't announce the title yet because it's not ready to be released.
But when it's ready, could you let us know? We'll have you come back on.
I will.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure, Doc. Sorry to say, but we have to run.
Thank you. Everyone fight for your freedom. We have to be free people. Thank you so much
for
having me on.
Next up, we'll be joined by Reverend Dr. Terrilyn L. Curry Avery. She's a candid, big-hearted pastor psychologist who uses her book, Dismantling Racism, to help people spot the biases they carry, unpack where they came from, and start doing the real work of change. So it's imperative you come back after the news at the top of the hour, suffer through a few commercial messages, but once that's all done, Mert, Alex, Dr. Avery, along with the rest of the AM9 team will be right here waiting for you. We know you want it. We know you do. Please come back for hour 2 of Shake It Up with Mert and Lucas Live. Next up, after the break, Dr. Terrilyn Curry, a pastor psychologist with the rare gift of telling you the truth without making you run for the exit. She's big-hearted, razor clear, and she's here to help us spot the biases we swear we don't have, trace where they come from, and maybe even start doing the uncomfortable work that actually changes something. All right, stick around. This is the kind of conversation that just doesn't land. It lingers. We'll be back.
The preceding hour of programming, sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.
In times like these, we all need a word of encouragement. From pastor and best-selling author Max Lucado comes the Max Lucado Encouraging Word podcast. With over 40 years of ministry and more than 145 million books sold in 50 languages, Max shares the greatest story ever told, the living Savior who brings hope for a lifetime. Through rich biblical insight, heartfelt storytelling, you'll be reminded that God is always near, always for you, and always in you. Listen to the Max Lucado Encouraging Word podcast, where hope meets your day. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.